You know those stories where a bunch of hapless victims are thrown into some kind of life or death challenge scenario? The Hunger Games, Saw, Squid Game? I've never really thought much of them. To me, they just looked like popcorn movies. Easy to digest, high stakes, gruesome spectacles, more than enough tension to keep you glued to your seat. But then I realized there is something weird about all these stories. Or not even really the stories, but the way you humans seem to consume them. If you thought the title or the thumbnail of this video seemed familiar, that's good. They should be. There are tons of videos on YouTube that look just like this. Extremely popular videos about how, if you yourself were in one of these death games, you might be able to do a better job than the fictional characters in the story, and maybe even win. And that's so bizarre to me because why would you ever want to imagine yourself in these horrific scenarios? It just seems like the strangest kind of self-insert fantasy of all time. And then it dawned on me, it's actually sort of natural because you're all kind of already in a death game, aren't you? Are you enjoying the video so far? I hope so. We release one of these pretty much every week, which means that after this one, you'll have to wait at least another 7 days for your next Foundry fix. Although, technically, you don't really have to. We've actually made a ton of stuff that isn't up here on YouTube, like this video about the morphology of angels and why artists always give them wings, or this one about artificial life as a magic system. We even made a whole original series called Worldsmiths about our favorite authors and the unique landscapes of their minds. And hey, if you just don't want to wait for next week's YouTube video, the truth is, it's actually already out. That's right. You can watch it right now, ad-free, along with everything else I just mentioned, over on our streaming platform, Nebula. Visit go.nebula.tv/TaleFoundry to sign up for just $2.50 a month. It's honestly one of the cheapest and best ways to support the show. Thanks so much to everyone who checks it out. Before we talk about death games in fiction, we really have to talk about this whole strange video format. There is, in fact, a whole channel called How to Beat, which is, as you can probably guess, a bunch of speculation videos about how to beat deadly scenarios in fiction. Many of them, naturally, about death games. The videos are undeniably entertaining and very well put together. In terms of pure fun factor, it's not hard to see why these are so popular. But when you break down what's going on here, you do start to see an interesting phenomenon. Each video starts with a little setup, where the narrator gives some context for the situation they're about to break down. Characters, setting, stakes, all of that. As the characters in the story face their challenges, the narrator explains what they're doing, why, and most importantly, what you could do differently if you were in their shoes to get the best possible outcome. It's a fun, simple premise, and honestly, a lot of the solutions they find really are very clever. You can tell they really gave it a lot of thought. In one of their most popular videos, they tackle the red light, green light challenge from the show Squid Game. In it, they recommend using your thumb to gauge the distance to the end of the playing field. They also suggest running along the sunny side of the court, where fewer players are likely to congregate and you'd have more space to plan your moves. And since being able to stop quickly is such an important part of the game, you could use the wall there for extra traction and stability. Clever stuff, right? Honestly, I didn't really expect these videos to be so granular at first, but they really get into it. You can definitely start to see how you would execute a plan in this situation, to the point that you're almost, in a very weird way, eager to try it out. And that's the really weird part of this. These videos almost make you want to be in these life-threatening scenarios. They highlight maybe the oddest part of this whole genre, that self-insertion element. Last year, Netflix released a reality show based on Squid Game. The challenges are all just as unforgiving, to the point that several people were actually injured while competing. Unlike the original show, however, none of the games are designed to be fatal, and as yet, none of the contestants have actually died. So that's good. But this competition did give people the rare, real-life opportunity to indulge in the same rough conflict in the characters as Squid Game. A true opportunity to self-insert. And despite the facts that there was some potential for injury, that very few people would manage to beat the challenges, and that no one would get any compensation at all besides the one person who won the competition, people still showed up for it. A lot of people, in fact. The show had 456 competitors, the largest ever cast in reality TV history. There's obviously something undeniably exciting about the idea of putting yourself in these situations. So, what is it? What fantasy are you humans playing out in your head with these fictional death games? The most obvious, and probably least interesting answer, is that you want to win. There's usually some sort of big prize for the person who comes out victorious in these games. Huge stacks of cash, a status change for you and your family. Depending on how you interpret it, sometimes just the privilege of living another day. It's exciting to reach for something like that, even if there's a lot of pressure on you. Maybe even especially with that pressure. But that's true for any competition. It really doesn't answer the death part, does it? And that's kind of where the Squid Game reality show breaks down. The stakes end with you not winning. In a true death game, there's a lot more to lose. Importantly, you don't really get to take them lightly. They're basically traps. Often, the characters in the story are kidnapped or pressured or even just accidentally stumble into them, and then there's no way out but to play by the game's rules. Even characters who do choose to participate, like Katniss in the Hunger Games or Ji-hoon in Squid Game, do so under extreme duress. Katniss to spare her sister the same fate, and Ji-hoon because he is on the verge of financial destitution and losing everything he cares about anyway. For both of them, as terrible as it is, it represents a way out of a terrible situation. And that, I think, is a crucial element of these games. Not just the prize, but what it represents, especially against this entrapment scenario. In so many of these stories, the characters are not only competing for a way out of the game, but also a way out of their place in life. In the Saw franchise, John Kramer attempts to teach his victims the value of life by putting them into these games, to varying degrees of success. In Squid Game, the contestants are offered an incredibly huge sum of money if they win, and are all specifically chosen because they desperately need it to escape debt or pay looming expenses. It's fraught and scary and intense. But think about it. Competing in a life versus death competition to solve your greatest personal problems is actually a lot simpler than just figuring out your life. I think it's sort of compelling to fantasize about throwing everything into such a discrete, deciding moment. The fantasy of escape is one which permeates not just the environment of the game and its rules, but which reaches into life outside of it as well. Life is complicated, and for all their tension and scary repercussions, these scenarios really aren't. They are just games, after all. And in that vein, I think it's worth mentioning that not all of these stories do present ways for characters to escape fate. It's not always that heady. Some of them really are just cruel and purposeless trials that exist purely for their own sake, from which the competitors may take a lesson, but for whom the ultimate goal really is just getting to the other side with as many fingers on your hands and as much blood in your veins as possible. Nevertheless, you humans still seem to love it, still seem to enjoy videos about these scenarios as much as any other, and I'd bet anything that the reason is similarly uncomplicated. Risk is fun, even when it's your life. It's surprising how easy it is to see life and death stakes as a simple intensity multiplier. This is the one chance you have, and the stakes are, arguably, the highest they could possibly be. Under those circumstances, pushed to their absolute limit, human beings are capable of incredible things. So, What would you do? How far could your resourcefulness, your focus, your strength, your determination, your ability to rally others take you? Would you snap under the pressure? Would you give up? What parts of yourself would you discover that, under normal circumstances, you never even knew were there? The rigid structure of a game with rules creates a pretty incredible environment for these qualities to surface. Things are discrete and relatively clear. Now it's all down to you and how you'll approach solving these problems, besting these challenges. Tantalizing for a species of problem solvers. I can hardly blame you for falling into these fantasies. It's exciting to think about doing the impossible, winning when the odds are stacked against you, even, in a manner of speaking, beating death at its own game. Have you ever seen this? The classic image of death playing chess with its victims. The idea is very simple. If you can beat death at a game of chess, you can escape it for a bit longer. This is a visual that's shown up over and over again across the ages. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. It's empowering to see a human in this position, tangling with a cosmic force in such a simple, digestible way. Human cunning against death itself, with an actual chance to come out victorious. Very literally, the human struggle, reduced to a mere game. I'm sure you see where I'm taking this. The challenges the players face in these death games, while they may be incredibly novel or silly or unnecessarily gratuitous, also act as a metaphor for the struggles human beings face every day of their lives. In fact, in some of them, you can very clearly see how exactly they mirror life. Sometimes it's even built right into the rules. In the Hunger Games, socioeconomic class divides are reflected in the huge advantage contestants from wealthier districts enter the contest with. Sometimes these dynamics aren't built into the game, but emerge from the conflict the games present. In Squid Game, players are continuously pitted against each other in clever ways. And, just like in real life, we see them organize into their own small power systems and struggles, fighting tooth and nail against each other, while the true enemy watches from above, safe and unchallenged. It almost seems inevitable that this kind of thing will happen when the stakes are life and death. The game doesn't even have to be designed to bring these things out. It just will. So then it's pretty easy to understand why, in the stories, the designers of these games so often see them as social experiments and actually lean into that kind of design. If you put a bunch of people in a big room and make them kill each other for money, what will that reveal about the society and the people who inhabit it? If you trap a bunch of people who don't value their lives and make them struggle for their lives, will their outlook change? As if to put their money where their mouth is, the game masters themselves have a habit of getting involved in the challenges they've designed. In the first Saw movie, John Kramer poses as a corpse in the middle of the iconic bathroom and only reveals himself at the end. In Squid Game, Oh Il-nam, the man who orchestrated the whole thing, pretends to be a fellow competitor, and we can see him relishing the experience, and then later musing about it on his deathbed. You could just take this to be villains being villains, but I think there's a more interesting angle. I think these villains may just be feeling what you're feeling as an audience. I think, just like you, they have a similar dissonant desire to self-insert. And, after all we've discussed here, I kind of think I get it. Like I said at the start, I never really thought much of this type of story. It just seemed like a sort of lurid spectacle. And I guess it is, but there are plenty of those out there, and they haven't spawned their own subgenres where people fantasize about what it would be like to experience them firsthand. When you strip away the reverse bear traps and lethal children's games and Thunderdomes, you find that all these games are just smaller, tidier versions of the game you're playing now. Your twisted gauntlet of adult murder games is also the fantasy that escape can be that easy, that your determination and skill and strength of character are, in the end, enough to get you out of whatever situation you're in. Your sadistic torture trials are, when you pay attention, a crucible where you get to see in the plainest possible terms what you're really capable of when pushed to the brink. Your televised fascist blood sport is, in its way, a microcosm of mortality itself, in the very human desire not just to live, but to win at living. So, how do you beat every death game ever? Well, if they really are modeled after life, I don't think any YouTube video can really give you an answer. No simple hack or clever strategy is going to solve the fundamental, pressing questions about who you are and how you live that these scenarios bring to the surface. There is no best solution for them, because there is no best solution for life. Which is why it's so fun to pretend that there is, to make life and living a much simpler problem to solve, if only for a moment. These death games and the ways that you talk about them don't actually offer a solution, but solving them is cathartic. Because, as it turns out, you're already in the most challenging death game of them all. And I'm afraid that's all for this week. Our next video will be coming out in a week from now, so I'll see you then. Unless, of course, you don't want to wait. We've actually made a ton of stuff that isn't up here on YouTube, like this video about the morphology of angels and why artists always give them wings, or this one about artificial life as a magic system. We even made a whole original series called Worldsmiths about our favorite authors and the unique landscapes of their minds. And, of course, if you just don't want to wait, next week's YouTube video is actually already out and ready to be watched. That's right. You can watch it right now, ad-free, along with everything else I just mentioned, over on our streaming platform, Nebula. YouTube is kind of a crazy place to make content. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have this platform, but you have to be so careful about your topic choices, your packaging, what you include in your videos. You just start to feel like you're walking on eggshells. Nebula doesn't have any of those concerns. It's an entirely different environment, devoid of all the weird YouTube cynicism. The entire platform was built by creators for creators. Every time you watch a video there, a creator you love is getting paid, and far more than they would ever get paid on YouTube. And on top of that, Nebula even helps its creators to fund incredible original content. You know, like our series, Worldsmiths. And we're not the only ones who have been busy over there. So many other amazing creators have started creating and sharing their own unique stuff on Nebula, like our friend Frankie from the channel A Bit Frank, or Tim from the channel Hello Future Me. Heck, there's even a high-production, independently run sci-fi audio drama over there called The Sojourn, which is just so good. I've been listening to it while working lately and loving every second of it. Nebula is just a really unique, fun, fresh environment. It kind of makes watching videos on the internet fun again. Speaking of which, here's the really fun part. Nebula is already cheaper than almost any other streaming platform on the internet, like $2.50 per month. That cheap. But right now, for a limited time only, we're offering you the chance to get Nebula for life. All you have to do to get started is click the link in the description or go to go.nebula.tv/Talefoundry and sign up for 1 year. That's it. Frankly, I'm not quite sure how they can afford to do all this, but I'm definitely not complaining. Seriously, take advantage of this offer while it's still going. I don't think any better one exists in the world of streaming. Anyway, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching and keep making stuff up. I'll see you next week. Bye!